Hey guys, Winter Wolf here. King Z going to be here in a quick minute, but tonight marks the start of a brand new playlist here on Winter Wolf's Den. We're going to call it something like, and we put a pin in this, Best of Worst of. And we're going to kick it off by going all the way back to modern, I would say modern sci-fi's roots. We're going to talk Star Trek, the original series. That's right. We're going all the way back to the beginning of the vaunted franchise. We looked around the internet, we did some due diligence, we did some research. Mostly we just asked the AI assistant that we use, what is the most popular episode and what was the worst episode of the original series according to the fans. So we're going to bring King Z in and we're going to start our discussion. There he is. What's up, bud?
Hey, what's happening? So
cool.
Excited to do this discussion in our classic sci-fi series that we're kicking off.
It's looking good. That's looking very colorful. Very saturated. I like it. I'm digging it. I'm digging it very muchly. But what do you think of the format? You think it's good to do best of, worst of? I think this is going to be fun, I think. It's going to let us get into a lot of franchises that we have planned rapid fire. I think this is going to be good.
Yeah, I think this will be good. I think it's going to be fun doing the best and worst of based on fan input.
Yeah. And you guys can let us know in the comments below what your favorite episode is of the original series, and maybe we'll check it out for future installments. Or also your worst episode, because I got to be honest with you, King, and we're going to talk about this as we get into the best of episode. I don't know, man. I guess unless you were there the first time around or you grew up with it, unless the writing is really bad, I think because the show is so old at this point, on a craft level, it's probably really tough to discern some of the hokey, cheesy from the really good stuff. There's probably some banger sci-fi ideas throughout the TOS all 3 years. But some of the hamming it up and the cheese backgrounds and effects, I mean, dude, I get it. It was 1967 or whatever.
1967. I mean, what else can you do?
You know what I'm saying? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I looked it up. The best episode that we're going to talk about first aired on April 27th, 1967.
Wow. Dude, we're kicking it in the way back machine tonight, brother. Oh, my God.
That's before my oldest brother was born.
You know what I'm saying? Dude, I think my dad might have been like 13 and watching this show. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going way back.
Yeah.
But one of the things you had said to me pre-show that I thought was kind of funny, and it kind of touches on what I was just talking about with like effects and the kind of craft. But you were talking about some of the acting. You just want to touch on that real quick and give people a preview?
What do you mean? The acting? Because, it's a joke, but we have to go.
I can't even, man. You had that little anecdote about Jason Alexander roasting Shatner at the celebrity roast there for him, and I think I remember that after the fact. But that's good stuff. It's as recognizable in sci-fi as a pattern of speech will ever be.
Yes,
it's just how it is. It's parodied everywhere. Everything this guy does, someone's going to make that joke going forward.
Yeah,
and he is a legend.
But I think we chose this because we just did do a review. You'll see the card right here of us reviewing the latest movie installment that's on Paramount Plus, Sector 31, I believe.
Section 31.
Section 31. So it made us think, what made people fall in love with Star Trek? And you have to go back to the original series for that, which is based more in science than it is fiction. And one of the things I do love about science fiction and fantasy type stuff, which is the genre that I try to write in myself, is that you can have all of the human emotions you have, but you can set it in a new environment where you could possibly tell a story a little bit better, which I think when we get to the best one, I'll outline why that is one of the best type of stories.
Yeah, dude, I wait then. We'll just get right to it, guys. This is going to be our community out there in the world. Best pick of Star Trek, the original series, all 3 seasons, was this city on the edge of forever. Widely accounted. I did checked on a bunch of nerd sites, a bunch of blogs that I checked out, ran it through the chat GPT just to get a feeling of an aggregate, and everything came back, city on the edge of forever. And I've heard this episode mentioned on much, much larger channels as they talk about top 5 This Is Star Trek, top 10 personal favorite. And these guys got deep cut knowledge of stuff. So if they're saying this is a go-to episode, it might not be personal favorite. It might not be your personal favorite, but I can certainly see where they were getting at after I watched this episode. It only took one good viewing to get the point of it. It's a pretty simple story at its heart. It's basically, if you could go back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you? You get some fish out of water stuff here. But the main synopsis is that the Enterprise gets caught up in like a time distortion thing. They send down a ground team to chase Bones, who accidentally injected himself with a very potent medication that caused him to go kind of psycho, and he left the ship. They went down to find him, They come across very old, very powerful technology that's able to transport them anywhere in their past, anywhere in history, right? And as it proceeds, Bones jumps through the portal like a jackass because he's all out of his gourd, and then Spock and Kirk got to follow him. But the rub is they can't figure out exactly the moment to jump through the portal, and it winds up they actually get further back in the past by about a week or so. So they're surviving in like basically 1930s San Francisco, New York, wherever it was, waiting for Bones to arrive.
They never actually said where they were located.
Yeah, I didn't think they did. There was a newspaper at a couple of different points, and I was trying to think in my head if it said New York Times or something. But you're right. I think it was just nondescript. It was America. It was like
America, 1930s
in a major city. Right? Yeah. So they get back in time. They're waiting for Bones to show up because when they had initially set down on the planet, something had changed, and they had realized that the Enterprise was no longer in orbit. And then they figured out via all the timey-wimey stuff that Bones must have inadvertently changed the future. He went on butterfly effect.
Yeah.
And stuff was broken. So they had to stop him from doing whatever. So there's a mystery there to put the timeline back.
Yeah.
It's all very simplified. They don't try to go out of their way to do any kind of like mind-bendy weirdo stuff. And they really just set him off and running with the fish out of water story for a week until Bones shows up.
Yes. Yeah, it was the entity that they found was both biological and technological. That's the word I'm looking for.
I got you, bro. I got you.
And it told them that it could show them entire past, and it has like a little smoke screen, and you can see their entire past. We'll get into the production level of this later, but just for the story thing. But it's moving so fast, it's hard to pick an exact day when you're going to get in. And they did say that they wanted to go back before Bones got there so they could intercept him as he got there. Yeah. Right.
But like you said, it wasn't the DeLorean. There was no keypad for them to key in the date, the time, and this and that. No, it was jump now.
But as we talked about good writing, they actually threw in something where he's like, let me start recording this. I should have recorded this earlier. And they caught on the recording about the time frame where he jumped in. So they kind of timed it. Now, the likelihood of that happening, but you kind of forgive it to try for the story.
Right. Or otherwise you don't have a show.
Yeah.
It's not fire in space.
Yeah, but I mean, when they realized something was different, it was almost immediate because he jumped through and then they lost connection to the Enterprise. Now, once again, you have to have your sense of disbelief because if there was no Enterprise, how did they get there in the first place? And a whole bunch of other things had to change.
That's the paradox. Right?
But they're playing with that. They're on a different timeline now with some of the changes, and they just happen to still be on this planet. So, like I said, you have to forgive some of the, if you want to be like a purist of time travel, this isn't the show for you. And once again, it's based in what they believe science would be like in 1960. So, and once again, we haven't perfected time travel, so how do we know how it really works? So,
because I haven't sent myself back in time to tell myself yet. That's how you know we don't have it yet. What up, dude?
Nope, still not there.
They did that joke on Big Bang Theory, so I got to give them credit for that. But still, but there's a lot. I thought there was a lot of charm to go back even to either of these episodes for me, really. And I had a couple of pages. I had a page of notes on each, but I liked the structure of the episode. It reminded me so much of why I like older TV instead of streaming series, dude. There's like 30 episodes or something of season 1.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, and this is why these characters endear 50 years later. They had 30 kicks at the can to make you fall in love with Chekhov, Sulu, Kirk, Spock, Uhura, Scotty, and everybody else. So even if they had a clunker of an episode like what we're going to talk about next with the worst of, it didn't matter because week to week, you never knew what you were going to get, and they always had another shot. There was always another go. You can't have that in Discovery. You can't have that in Picard. I mean, you can't really have that in Stranger Things or Wednesday or any of the other good streaming shows that are out there because they're always trying to tell that season-long, 8-hour-long movie broken into 8 parts. So if they screw up one, it's like you're losing a big chunk of your movie. But here they can do conception. They can do high concept shit like fish out of water time travel, and it works or it doesn't, and then they just move on.
The reason why I believe it worked back then too, because a lot of the things were the monster of the week. Like you had Perry Mason, and you had the chase of the week. You had that whatever's going to happen that week. And there wasn't really a big overlining story. With today's, you have an overlining story that they put in episodic. And
I think I really hate that now.
But we see a simple format in today's shows. Like we've caught on to it. Episode 1 introduces everything. Episode 2 builds on it. Episode 3 is your flashback episode. Episode 4 sends you off into fun and games. Episode 5 rounds everything out. Then 6, 7, and 8 is to build, or 6 and 7 is to build to your climax, and 8 is your climax.
And we're gonna call it the hashtag King formula. I mean, I think that's what it is. You called it the 2, and 3.
Yeah,
is the algebra behind it. We know I'm not a math guy, so that's why I leave it to you. But I think you're right. There's just something about going back and just knowing, like, by the time the credits rolled on the end of this episode, I was like, okay, cool. I sat down for an hour. I got a full-fleshed story that had character beats, that had an interesting setup, an interesting kind of walkthrough of everything that had to happen. We got to see slice of life stuff, because when Kirk and Spock are back in 1930, like, they're basically hobos for a week. They get taken into a mission by the main kind of supporting role, the ever gorgeous Joan Collins.
Yes.
He's still my beating heart. And they have to kind of live life as like those guys in the 30s. Like, they still get hungry. They still need a place to go.
Mm-hmm.
They try to be slick, and Kirk's like, I think this is going to be pretty easy to navigate at one point. They try to steal clothes and instantly get busted. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, and then he's trying to talk with the cop. He's like, I can describe you as he's Chinese. And then it was like in his head, he's like, maybe it was that childhood accident. Yes, the childhood accident. There are funny beats in it.
They hammed it up way more than like comedy wise, not with the acting, but like you were just saying, where like the cop tries to bust him, he throws him up against the wall, and Kirk's like, hey, your wife let you leave the house looking like that? And the cop looks down, and when he does, Kirk turns around and slugs him.
No, it was that Vulcan net pinch.
I thought he hit him, and then Spock went in for the pinch. It was just a pinch?
It was just a pinch.
Okay, it was still the same setup. And then, dude, they do that in this episode, and they did it again in the worst of episode 2. Like, when they were taken prisoner, they're like, I guess we got to find a way to have science help us get a shot. Boom! And they're just throwing hands. I'm like, this is some comedy shit that, like, I did with my younger brother when I was 8. This must be where I picked it up. But, like, shows today don't do that. There'd have been a bloody bath shootout. And like there's nothing charming about that, but that's the charm of 1967 TV. Dude, I have in my notes, both episodes remind me in places of like the Brady Bunch, because there's certain musical stings that come up, like the fluttering of different tones when things are going on and it's supposed to be lighthearted. I'm like, is this the bunch? Did I start watching Brady Bunch? It sounds like it.
Yeah,
and it's wild, man.
I've said tons of times, a lot of what music in these shows are for is to tell you how to feel or to add to the emotion of the scene. If it's whimsical, it'll be a whimsical theme. Is it supposed to be serious? You'll get the dun dun dun. If it's supposed to be
stingers, they had stingers, dude. They 100% had them.
And if it's supposed to be like a love tender scene, you have that low romantic, maybe violin music.
They had the soap opera music. Yes, they did.
That is the purpose of music.
Had it. Yep.
Like you can always ask questions. One of my favorite ones is someone made a joke. It's like, oh, where's that light coming from when someone's walking in the dark? And one of the people on set turned around, the same place the music is. Thank you very much.
The crux of the story isn't so much the time travel bit. It's not even really the would you kill Hitler bit.
No,
right? Because what it boils down to, it's Kirk and Edith Keeler. And Kirk falls in love with the 1930s, the organizer or the manager of the shelter. She's a social worker. She's got a big heart of gold, but she's also got this really interesting outlook on the future and where mankind can go. She's very optimistic. Like, she's the quintessential Trekkie before there were Trekkies, You
could say she was the female version of Jules Verne's.
Yep, pretty much. She just didn't write the stories. Exactly. So Kirk falls for her, and during the course, I was almost at the Kirk of the episode, during the course of the episode, they find out as Spock is trying to rebuild technology with the primitive parts. He called it stone knives and bear skins.
Yeah, stone knives and bear skins.
He gets glimpses of a possible future, and he comes to understand that Edith Keeler is either going to die in the next week, and they put it together that it's because that it has something to do with McCoy.
A traffic accident.
They find out it's a traffic accident, and then they figure out that the alternative timeline is that she doesn't die. And she takes her social work to the next level, to the point so big that she convinces FDR not to enter World War II and the Nazis win. So human history is completely undone as we know it.
And which you find out later in the episode. The main part when they first find out through the glimpses is that he saw her obituary. Right. And then in the same paper, they saw that she was meeting with the president. So and that's when they believed that she was the focal point. So whatever Bones did had to do with her. And it was either he saved her life or he killed her.
And then we find out neither of those things happened. Because to put the timeline back together in a fairly... It was hammed up a little bit, but I still felt for Kirk when it went down. When he realizes that McCoy is they've caught up to McCoy, or McCoy's caught up to them in the timeline. It's because Edith says, it was Edith Keeler, right? Edith?
Yeah.
Is that her name? Joan Collins. Edith says, oh, you sound like my friend Dr. McCoy. And he's like, McCoy, Leonard McCoy? And she's like, yeah. And he says, oh, yeah, he's at the shelter. So Kirk runs across the street to run back into the shelter.
To tell Spock.
Of course, shows up. McCoy comes out there all hugging because McCoy's not jammed out of his mind anymore. And then she sees the three guys hugging and walks into the effing road. Kirk turns around, but realizes that he can't fucking save her, and it's crushing. But McCoy starts to walk off the sidewalk because he's the one that actually did save her in Timeline B, and Kirk has to wrap him up to not let him go do it, and then history, the right way to history happens. And Kirk, of course, it looked like he took McCoy out of the run into the street move, but he's, of course, because it's the 60s and very maudlin, he's got like the eyes closed and the grimace and like he's about to cry, but he won't because Kirk wouldn't cry kind of thing. And you're like, God damn, dude, that kind of sucks. And the episode wraps more or less with McCoy being like, Jim, do you know what you did? And Spock's like, he knows, Doc.
Yeah.
He knows.
He's like, I could have saved her. He's like, do you know what you did? And he's like, he knows. Brutal. And that's what plays into the heart of the episode. Like you said, it's not the time travel part. The time travel was the MacGuffin to make this thing happen.
Yeah, it was the vessel. That's all. Yep.
The story is, are you willing to do everything to set it right, even if it cost you everything?
Yep.
And at the heart, that's the heart of this story. It has nothing to do with like if you could go back and kill baby Hitler. And it also plays into like the heart of what Star Trek is. Remember, Star Trek is the Enterprise is not an attack vessel; it is a science vessel. This is why Spock works.
It's an exploratory vessel. You're 100% right. Not a diplomatic vessel like the Enterprise D. Science vessel. 100% correct.
Yeah, it's a science vessel, and as a true scientist, a lot of their stuff was to observe. And that's what they actually did. They had to observe history happen before them without changing it. Even though he fell in love with her in a matter of, 26 minutes.
They had an hour or so. I mean, it's an hour-long show. There's 50 minutes. And for Kirk, and what I love about this, though, is this kind of both of these episodes, in a way, undo Kirk in modern interpretations as the misogynist. Because he was very heartfelt and sentimentally connected to this woman because of her strength of character. When they were in the mess hall or in the shelter, and the one other hobo is like, oh, we got to put up with her crappy singing and lecturing, but the food's good, and plus she's nice to look at, if you know what I mean. Kirk's like, fucking shut up.
No, he's like, the way she could help us is he's like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, he was dirty, and then he told him to shut up.
Yeah,
like he shut the dude down.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I don't know, Kirk gets a pretty bad rap, But it's a great episode. I get 100% why it ranks amongst people's top whatevers. There's no gunshot or phaser blast. There's no action at all. I mean, they wrestle with Bones to kind of restrain him. That actually gives me one of the best kind of hamming it up. I'm going to clip it and put it in here for you guys to see. But it's this part where Bones is trying to escape the bridge, and Kirk grabs him by the forearm, and all Bones does is kind of flail this way, and Kirk rolls out of the way like he took sniper fire. Like he pirouettes twice and hits the safety rail and goes down, and then Bones blows through like 5 other red shirts to get on the fucking elevator, and I'm like, dude, computer, lockdown, turbo, lift C. Picard would have shut that shit down in 5 seconds, no episode. Yeah. Picard ain't having that suspension of disbelief bullshit. Cisco would have shot him.
Yeah. One of the other things that I want to point out, which are the 2 bad points of this episode, is one.
Let's do a couple.
The overflopping of when they're shaking. Like they're throwing themselves. Yeah, I seen LeBron take less flops than these guys did in this. But I mean, you kind of had to exaggerate a little bit because you don't have the CGI, you don't have moving props or sets like they kind of have now where they can simulate that type of stuff. But two, when McCoy first shows up to the past, he runs into a homeless guy who just stole a bottle of milk, and Bones kind of passes out, and he takes his communicator from him, which has the coordinates to the Enterprise to beam him back up. He punches something in, he disappears, and not another word said about him. You don't know where he went because there is no Enterprise back in 1930 something. Oh. So where did he go, and why does no one care?
No idea. I noticed that. I'm like, so is he just dead? Was the point just to get this device away from Bones? Because I don't think they needed that. I mean, maybe they did, but they were going to set the timeline right, hopefully. I don't know. Dude, and if I had to have a negative in there at all, man, I got to go back and scan my thoughts real quick. I mean, besides some of the hamming it up, and as a medical guy, I had this in the notes. So they're talking about giving Sulu an injection of a medicine at the beginning after the console explodes in his face because of one of the time bubbles or whatever. He goes down, he's unconscious, right? Because of turbulence. Nobody seems terribly concerned that this guy's unconscious and something blew up in his face, but they responded medically, which is fine. Kirk says to McCoy, Cordrazine, it's a couple of drops, it's tricky stuff. And Bones says, Jim, were you about to make a medical comment? And then Sulu perks up and he's fine. But then 5 seconds later, Bones with his 30 years of medical experience jams himself in the stomach with the hypodermic and empties the chamber in his stomach.
Yeah.
That's some rookie shit that I'm always telling students, bro. After the injection, ditch the thing as quickly as you can in the waste bin. You know what I mean? You don't bend the tip anymore. Most of our shit retracts. I get it. They didn't have that in 67. I'm not here to criticize their technology. But, you don't carry it around when you're still in the disturbance. You're still in the turbulence. Put it in the bin. Thanks, McCoy. Safety video. I had a safety 101.
I did like the Stein comment, though. I did like that. Were you
give
me medical advice?
And dude, it's the comedy, dude. I don't remember that being there. And it comes back in the worst of, too. And dude, if you're ready to, should we jump? Should we go on to the worst of?
No, I have two more things I want to point out.
Dude, take
one, the comedy really showed, like, I was catching on to this comedy as the same as it was in, Star Trek 3, the movie, The Voyage Home. Like, the comedy was there in this one, like it was.
3 was Search for Spock.
No, that was 2. Oh, yeah, 3 was Search for Spock, so 4.
Everybody forgets the first movie because it was terrible.
Yeah, Voyager.
Wrath was actually 2. Right.
Viger. It was a Star Trek the motion picture,
exactly.
And Viger, and then Wrath of Khan, then the Search for Spock, and then the Voyage Home.
So the comedy hit on the level of one of the OG movies is what you're trying to say.
The fourth one, the Voyage Home.
Yep.
So that's what I saw there. And 2, did you notice that there was no checkoff in this one? It was a different helmsman.
It was a different helmsman in the front left of our left on the screen. You're right.
Checkoff didn't come till later in the series, but became a quick fan favorite.
30. 28. 29.
It was episode 28. But if you go on your streaming platform of Paramount Plus, it will say that it's episode 29. And the reason why that is, on the original airing, when they started the series, it was episode 28. But they had one episode before they started the series where Captain Pike was
that's right.
of the Enterprise. Yes.
Yes, I forgot about
Captain
that.
Kirk was the first officer, but he tested better on screen. So when they started the series, Captain Kirk was in the captain's seat, and Pike was an admiral.
And waited 50 years to come back as the captain on Strange New Worlds.
Yep. Well, he was also the captain in the J.J. Abrams version.
In the
Star
J.J.
Trek,
movies,
first.
That was a good Pike. I like that Pike. He was pretty good. I like the Anson Mounds Pike too. I just don't like the show very much.
So that's why on streaming it's episode 29, but in original airing it was episode 28.
Let me ask you this before we switch over to the other episode. Do you think if you had, let me say you had a week off and you had literally nothing else to do, right? If I told you I wanted to do a whole run of season 1 of TOS, do you think you could do it, or is the material not engaging enough now in 2025, where if you didn't grow up with it? Because I don't know that have you ever seen the whole thing like when you were younger growing up, or were you more of a TNG guy like me?
I was more of a TNG guy, but my mom loved it, so I caught a lot of the older episodes as well. I don't remember as much as I was a lot younger, so
But do you think that like a modern audience could go back and literally, like if you were 25 right now, could you do 30 episodes of TOS if you were just a general sci-fi fan, or is it too dated?
If you're a general sci-fi fan, I do believe that you could watch it if you take it for story alone and you take the production and some of the overacting out of it. Like the episode we just talked about when they're chasing McCoy on the planet and like how he just pops up behind a rock and runs away. Like, oh no,
I was cracking up, dude. I cracked up for 2 solid minutes when he did that because he popped up and gave you the ferret look, the meerkat. It was too funny.
Yeah. So if you go away from that and the production value of it, and just stick with the story, I do believe there would be enough there to hold your attention.
I would tend to agree. I think it's basically, what it occurred to me, it's not like watching TV in the modern age. It basically would be like watching a televised stage play. Like everything is overacted for like an audience that's watching from 800 feet away. So the motions have to be dramatic when they flail around. Even like in the next episode we talk about it, like when they get zapped with the pain belts, they're hitting the floor like full rigor mortis. Faces just, it's weird, but I think that's why.
And see, a lot of people refer to them as laugh tracks. That's why sitcoms are different today as well, because before sitcoms were filmed in front of a live studio audience. But now they're not. But they throw the laugh track over there still, which would simulate the live studio audience.